We call it false, short, even back, an alternate edge for your attack. A little less power, but a bit more speed. False edge cut's a move that you need. Hey everybody, Lauren back with you. There's construction on the street, so hopefully that the microphone is doing a good job. That sound's not coming through. Hydrovacking. If you don't know what that is, you use a high pressure jet of water to cut into the ground, and then a vacuum kind of vacuums up the slurry. Big truck. And it's noisy. And it's happening. But I still wanted to make a video today because I want to talk to you about fighting with your false edge. Yes, false edge fighting. Swords can have two edges. So whether it's a Linesmaster, and this is the blade that you choose to use, and it has a long or true edge, and then a short or false edge, which is just a little sharpened part on the back. Well, that's one option. The other, a long sword, a double-edged sword, for example, and it could be an arming sword. So there are cut and thrust. There are swords with one edge that's different from the other. There are swords where the edges are symmetrical. But if you have symmetrical, it's still called a long or true edge, or a short or false edge, or a front and a back edge. But the fact that the edges are the same, well, it's techniques that we're talking about. So yes, using the long, true edge of a sword, as we've talked about in other videos, what does that do for us? Well, that gives us a bit more power and a bit more range. We can reach it a little further with a true edge cut. Using a false edge cut, well, we may not have the reach, and we may lose a bit of power, but we are going to get a bit of speed. So there are situations where you can enter into using the false edge of the sword. Remember, there's nothing false about it. When we think true and false, we're thinking about correct and incorrect. That's not how it works here. False or short edge is a shorter attack, but faster attack. And how do we use that in a fight? Well, if we move the chair out of the way, we will talk about some of these movements. So what do we mean when we talk about using the false edge for fighting? If we want this move, we can just look at it briefly. We can call this Zverkau, Zverchau, Zverhau. There are slightly different spellings and pronunciations. Of course, being, Canadian, our club, we say it's Zverchau because it just sounds fun. Zverch. Although it probably should be Zverkau if we were trying to be really German about it. But it doesn't matter. What matters is getting the technique correct. And at least how we teach it, if you have the sword in front of you, you kind of drop the point a little bit. You point your thumb. This is important. It's going to help with your flexibility on this move. And now we know that facing our opponent is this long, true edge. We want to use the opposite edge. And so we drop the sword a little bit. We bring our hands up. We whip the sword around. And of course, a step to the side. And we come across. And it's a fairly quick move that we can use. If we are being attacked and we wanted to use this move as a response, we do have to step to the side to get out of the way of the incoming attack. That's very important. Poleaxe has decided to take a trip. I don't want to take a trip. As in, I don't want to meet the floor. Okay, we're just going to keep filming. If we were in a bind, we have an opposing sword here. I can use this. I've got a neutral bind. I want to attack the opponent. But if I take the sword and go to cut, the opponent could either try and thrust in that little bit of time, or can easily parry and set aside my blade. So I'm in a bind with the opposing blade. I want to attack. I have an opening. I've got a little bit more control. Maybe I've got the control of the center line better than my opponent. What I can do is use the false edge, and I can come in and cut. So I'm not really leaving the opposing sword to come out and do this big cut. I'm not opening that gap and exposing myself. I am turning the sword. I'm still protecting my head I am still protecting my body. The sword is still in front of me. I'm not doing anything like that. And it's that quick snap. Most importantly, I gotta make both hands work. One's gotta push and pull, one's gotta pull, and I've gotta snap that attack. So it's fairly quick. So here I am. I've stopped the incoming attack. The opponent hesitates. I've got the center line, control of the opponent. Boom. And in. I'm still protected by my sword, and that false edge delivers that cut to the opponent. It's not quite as far a reach. We can see that I can reach a little further, but it gives me that speed, and I'm still protected. So it is a very good cut to use. You can use it with a single-handed sword or a two-handed sword. So if we switch to the Linesmaster, if I were fighting with this and I were in a bind with the opponent, again, I am sharp here on the sword. I can easily cut with it. And that is a motion that's good for practicing, building up strength and endurance in the arm, for performing these moves at a good speed. Block, parried, set aside. I've got the center line. I deliver that cut to the face. Of course, a lot of this is good for unarmored or lightly armored fighting. If someone is heavily armed and armored, if we're talking about wearing a sallet, or, a lot of protection, a lot of armor, these little cuts, well, you fight differently. But skirmishing, I've got, or, just self-defense on the road. Bandits and brigands and thieves, oh my, they come out to attack me and they need to die. Because I don't want to, and I don't want to give up my goods. So I stop, cut. So whether it's one-handed or two-handed, I can use this edge to perform attacks that are quick, will hurt the opponent. Maybe they're not quite as powerful, they're not going to cleave through anyone, but they make that difference. We can also use the false edge for, thanks for focusing camera. If our bind is low, and I've got the opposing blade down here, for example, maybe there was a thrust that I set aside, I can do a quick cut with the false edge. If I'm using the true edge, I've got to turn the sword, I've got to move up, and again, I'm exposed. But that false edge, I'm still keeping my guard low to help offer some protection. I'm filling that space so that I'm not exposed, and I am just attacking. So, 1, 2, and I'm just up with the blade. So, a sword will have two edges, and even a sword with a single edge still can have a sharpened back edge. So the back edge can be used for this false edge cut. So swords are more than just hacking like this? Yes, we know that. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that swords are quite versatile. Fast, deadly, sharp, well-balanced pieces of steel. And yes, Linesmaster, one of my favorites. A long edge and a short edge, a true cut and a false cut. It's still sharp up here. You can still deliver those cuts. So you might end up in a position where performing your big powerful cut is just going to leave you exposed. And remember, rule number 1 in historical European martial arts, don't get hit. So even if you're like, I'm going to land a hit and the opponent can't stop me, but the opponent tries to stab you with a, get you with a thrust or their own little cut, that's not good. If we were looking back 600 years ago, what would we say? Don't get hit, because even a small wound can lead to infection and a lot of bad things. So we want to keep ourselves protected and still hit the opponent. So if I'm doing this, all that space opens up. If I'm doing this, I'm still closer and I'm faster. And I've got to keep the opponent defensive in that attack. They are going to get hit. And the smart thing for them to do in that quick attack is to try and stop it. It's so fast that they may not be able to because it's there. Wow. So that is talking about fighting with the false. So you fight with your false edge, you perform these quick little movements, these cuts, you can still keep yourself a bit better protected, you're more of a threat to your opponent, and you're following the don't get hit while still hitting the other person. That is how you survive the fight. Anyway, thanks so much, everyone. Do remember, like, subscribe, notification bell if you want. Comments, of course, comments are always important because that helps shape the channel. Please tell me what you would like to see, and I'll try and film it. Anyway, take care, stay safe. Hopefully we didn't hear the construction noise from outside, and I'll see you again for some more sword swinging action, and try and stay a cut above.